All right, this is our first live Hangout news report from the Cup of Linux community, and I have a few upstanding members from the community joining us tonight. First, we have Biff, who's a regular participant at Cup of Linux and on our Mumble server. Then, of course, we have our lead administrator and the developer of Boomer or Bummer C or whatever it was. We looked at that yesterday. Good stuff indeed. We've got our resident genius, Edge226. We've got Michael, and if he isn't half-baked, he might have something good to share with us. And then, of course, yours truly, I'm here. And we've got some interesting topics that have been discussed on both on the forums and in the community in general. And so we figured, why not? Let's just start and do a hangout and see how well this works out. First thing in the news. This is something that may be of interest and certainly a hallmark to what's been happening with Linux. It appears that Android hoards 84% of smartphone OS market share. Google's Android stole share from all the major mobile OS rivals over the past year to achieve a whopping smartphone market dominance of roughly 84% in the third quarter of 2014, according to a new strategy analytics report. Apple's iOS, which weighed in with about 12%, lost more than a point of share to Android since the same quarter a year ago as a result of its limited presence at the lower end of the smartphone market, the report has found. And then, of course, we don't even want to talk about Windows mobile market share because, well, Brian's laughing. Come out with it. Come out with it.
Okay, just from a purely business perspective, Microsoft was too late to the game. I mean, don't get me wrong. Microsoft has always been in mobiles, in the mobile arena. They've always had a mobile OS. It just wasn't any damn good. So for the longest time, even before Android came along, for the longest time, you know, they could barely hold their head above water while they were competing with Symbian and BlackBerry's OS. Then Apple comes along with iOS, and you know, for the first couple of years there, they owned it. It was Apple's market all the way. And their only real competitors were Symbian and the BlackBerry OS, and BlackBerry has just continually lost market share. Then Android comes along. Steve Jobs' dang near dying wish was that Android be stomped, crushed into the ground because he was convinced that, you know, it was a stolen product. You know, I mean, that was literally his dying wish. Well, almost literally his dying wish. And now, you know, and now it's funny that Android, and I'm not surprised because one, it's very, very good. Two, it has, you know, Google is a tech giant. It is a giant in the industry. So, you know, it has the backing of Google, and, you know, at its core, at its heart, it's Linux.
Now, before I even heard about Android, I had the HTC Excalibur, and that ran Windows Mobile 6. And even had plugins. You can make it look like Windows XP and all this other stuff. But I'll tell you what, I had to reboot that phone 3 or 4 times a day. Sometimes it would crash in the middle of doing something, you know, and that was a major grievance. And the thing is, you know, the Android phones, and I mean every single Android phone I've ever owned, just worked, and they didn't crash, you know. They're great for multitasking too. So, you know, while you're on the phone and you want to get a phone number to give the to give to the person on the line, yeah, sure, hold on, let me look that up. While they're on the line, be able to open up your phone directory and find the number and say, oh, here's the number, and then, you know, tell them what the number is. Or, you know, do any number of other things at the same time, and that's something I could never do on Windows Mobile 6. Now, that'd
Well,
be a
here's what.
challenge.
Now let's have a quick chirp on what Android does really well quickly.
Go
And
ahead.
none of the other operating systems for mobile seem to allow you to do this. They don't allow you to go back. This is an absolutely important feature. Rather than having to restart your workflow over and over and over again, make a mistake, being able to go back, that's very important, and you can't do it on an iPhone. I don't know about a Windows phone, but I know you can't do it on an iPhone.
Well,
I
here's what I think killed Windows Mobile, and because I myself had a couple of Windows Mobile devices, I had a Moto X, my very first smartphone. Uh, as far as the phone build quality itself, it was great. I think it's still next to my Nexus 5, my favorite phone I've ever owned. But when it was time to upgrade phones, I got another Windows Mobile phone. I think it was running Windows Mobile 6.1. And 6 months later, after I got that phone, Microsoft introduced Windows Mobile 6.5. And my phone did not get the refresh, did not get the update to Windows 6.5. And oh, by the way, all the apps that were out there for Windows 6.1, they stopped being maintained, and they started dropping off the market. And then I couldn't get apps. I couldn't get apps for my phone. And this is where iOS, this is where Apple actually kind of broke the code, and Android Google has taken that recipe and just ran all over the place with it. And that's in the applications, the third-party applications that you can install and run on Android. You know, there's an app for everything these days. I mean, you know, and that's what Android has, and to some extent iOS has, and that's something I don't think Microsoft has or will ever have. They're just too damn late to the market with it.
You know,
We
and
all already know this, but the only thing that can really compete on an app scale is if you could run native operating system apps on the device instead of having to have specifically designed apps.
but I want to also touch on, because Edge made a good point about the back button, but what about the home button that's on the Android devices? Because you could press and hold the home button. It opens up all the recent applications that you had open, including applications that are still running, and you can bounce back and forth between them so easily. You know,
Yeah,
and
that's
yeah, yeah, that is a godsend. All right, well, we spent enough time on the Android topic. Let's pass the mic over to Biff. What have you got in the news?
Oh, something interesting that jumped out at me because you know, there's a famous quote that I like to apply to anything that anytime people start talking about stocks, or more recently with the Bitcoin bubble. There's a reference to Joseph Kennedy, JFK's father. They asked him how he got out of the stock market, or how he knew to get out of the stock market just before it crashed. And the famous quote that he had was, he said that he knew to get out when he started getting stock tips from a shoeshine boy. And really, there's a truth to that. That anytime anything, any kind of investment, any kind of fad hits that apex where it's on the evening news, where it gets into pop culture, it's really at a point where things are going to change, and if it's something you're investing in, you should run. Well, there's a kind of a similar thing that happened recently. Some people may remember, if you've been watching the Netflix series House of Cards, they started referencing the hacker character there, and he references Tor and the deep web. And you know that when you see that things are about to change. And for a long time, the deep web had been a place, the dark deep web, and the portion of it called the dark net, had been something that was legitimately secret. There's a lot of illegal activity going on in there. But you know that once you see it on TV, that changes are coming. And that's what happened finally today. Actually, the BBC released today that they've gone and they went in and shut down 400 darknet sites that had illegal activity going on, and they arrested 17 people. But the interesting thing that kind of jumped out at me is how they did it. In this post-Snowden world where we assume that the government's watching everything, most of this was actually done through old-fashioned police work. They'd actually gotten in there, and on the Silk Road, which was the kind of the big one, the poster child that everybody talks about as the site where drugs are sold mostly. they had actually, the investigators had actually got in, befriended the maintainer, the guy who was running the site, and actually got mod privileges on the site where they were able to go in and see everything. So, so it was actually a somewhat, real kind of a respectable, good old-fashioned police work, going in and busting the criminal activity instead of taking advantage of exploits or the kind of mass monitoring that governments are becoming far too known for doing.
Now, something of interest, especially in the Linux community, you hear a lot of people, and especially, from the IRC crowds and that sort of thing, you hear of people who are using Tor for legitimate purposes. Obviously, we live in an age where information is readily available, but then by the same token, you have companies like Google and all these advertising companies out there right now who are targeting you so that they can send you advertisements and all of this other stuff. And so you do have people who are using Tor or virtual private networks because they want to have a little bit of privacy online. And this could be for very legitimate reasons. Okay, you have virtual private networks for people who are transferring documents from their home computer to their work computers, or for whatever reasons that people are using them.
Yeah.
And things like this, news reports like this, give Tor a bad name because, yes, for its potential for being abused. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. They caught people doing illegal activities. And then I saw some scare report online, I think about 3 weeks ago, where I think Comcast was threatening to, shut down any of their subscribers who were using Tor. I don't know if that was true or not. I thought the article was an interesting read, but it wasn't something that I could verify as being, valid. So, for now, I'm a firm believer in using VPNs or virtual private networks. We even have a good article on the forum as to why you should consider using them. It is a good idea to use them if you want to protect your privacy online. But I'd like to get you guys' thoughts on that. So, Brian, we'll ask you. What do you think about this? Uh-oh, he's got his glasses on now.
Well, here's the thing.
Tell us what the glasses are for.
These are my ranch shades.
No, but you gave a reason for them earlier tonight, before we started broadcasting.
Well, things start getting so hot and glowing when I get a good rant on that. I have to protect my eyes but.
Oh, sort of like putting boots on just in case something gets too deep?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay,
well,
go ahead.
All right. Well, I got the rant shades on, so this is going to be a mini rant on basically. Now, I know that when you sign up with an ISP, you agree to certain terms and conditions and whatever, but hell, nobody reads that fine print. Probably should, but nobody does. I mean, if they did read the fine print, they probably wouldn't sign the damn agreement in the first place. But at the end of the day, the expectation that a customer has from their ISP, or at least the expectation that I have, is I am paying for a certain amount of bandwidth at a certain speed per month. That's what I'm renting, or that's what I'm paying for from my internet service provider. What I do with my bandwidth, as long as I'm not breaking any, as long as I'm not breaking any laws, is my damn business. And if in the protocol stack that I run, that I run on the bandwidth that I pay for, is my business. If I want to run Tor, then I ought to be able to run Tor. If I want to run a VPN, either use a VPN service or do like I do sometimes, set up my own VPN so that when I'm out and about, I can still connect to the local to the resources on my local home land with my mobile devices. That's my business. Now I'm a victim. I mean a customer of
A victim.
and
We're all victims.
and you know Time Warner prohibits exactly what their terms and conditions. They prohibit setting up private VPN. If you want, technically, if you want to set up your own VPN on, on Time Warner, you have to pay for their business class service. Really? Really? A packet is a packet is a packet. It does not cost Time Warner any more money to push an encrypted VPN packet down the line than it does for them to push an unencrypted clear text packet down the line. It's ones and zeros.
It does.
It's ones and zeros. It's data. An encrypted packet is a little bit bigger than a clear text packet. Okay, I got that. But even so, I mean, it's not that much cost. It's just like back in the day when the cell phone companies were absolutely bending people over on text messaging. Now, here's the dirty little secret about text messaging. You know how much it costs a cell phone provider to deliver an SMS message? Zero, zip, nada, because SMS travels on the control channel that they have to use to sync their towers. They have to run that channel anyway, so it doesn't cut. It's no more overhead. It's no more bandwidth for them to push a text message down the line. But I remember when text messaging first got popular, I mean, they were charging outrageous, they were charging like 30 cents a dang text message for people to send text messages. Thank goodness we're beyond that and they don't do that anymore, but it's the same principle applies. And Comcast and Time Warner will try to sell people this sack of bull saying, well, there's so much more network maintenance costs involved, if everybody's using VPNs. Bull. There's not. It's just data. It's ones and zeros. They push it anyway. They're selling you a bag of crap. And I'll take the heads off.
I know. I know Edge has something to say on that. Someone pass the mic over to him.
No, I agree on most of that, other than it doesn't cost any more to send an encrypted package than a regular package. There is overhead on an encrypted package. That's all I really have to add on that. Is it's about 50% 50% higher than the standard packet.
Yeah, the thing I'd like to jump into a fun little fact on that one. A while back, Linux Journal actually had a write-up on data. We always hear about how the hard drives from we used to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars for a few kilobytes of storage, and data bandwidth used to be crazy expensive. But the most expensive bandwidth that has ever existed in the history of electronic technology is the 25-cent text message.
Yeah.
As far as the actual size, the actual cost, and the actual size of data transmitted. And I forget
Greedy companies out there. Brian, what's in the news?
Okay. Interesting little tidbit I ran across today. This comes to us via WMC Action News 5 in Mississippi. And down in DeSoto County, Mississippi, there's a good old boy who is trying to build a business of basically renting out flying drones for search and rescue, neighborhood watch, that sort of thing. But he's put a lot of time and money into this. He's built the drones himself. He has his own customized command center. But the only problem is he can't get it off the ground is the pesky Federal Aviation Administration and their archaic rulemaking that hasn't kept pace with technology. And this is a theme we see over and over again in our governmental regulatory bodies is they just can't keep up with the technology. And the FAA, here in the United States, the Federal Aviation Administration, basically controls everything from a foot off the ground up to, the stratosphere. So anything that moves in that space, the Federal Aviation Administration has jurisdiction over it, and they still have not clarified or made any rules or basically given anybody any help in the private drone industry. Leaving
Now, go ahead.
Leaving the politics of that aside, and whether or not it's a good idea to have a for-hire drone company out there, I just think that's kind of a sad commentary on. Personally, I have kind of libertarian leanings, and I think, if a guy is going to embrace new technology and try to, get a business going and make a living at it, I think by and large that's a good thing. And it's just a shame when government action, especially government inaction, as it seems to be the case here, keeps the guy from actually being able to go forward with it.
Well, they got these little camera planes now that you can buy. So and you can buy your kid these little toy airplanes that have motors and stuff, and those things actually fly. And I was looking at a report not too long ago where they had these 3D cameras, that were attached to this like a little model helicopter thing that you could fly and get aerial shots of stuff and everything. And it stands to reason that if the typical everyday average consumer can go out and buy one of these things, why wouldn't they be able to rent one?
Yeah.
To be able to, let's say you want to just get some aerial footage of that family picnic, or you want to, gosh, I can think of a million ways this could be perverted too.
Yeah.
This mind works, but
the rule of first adopters and all that.
So now what this is getting me to think here is that, now you're going to have FCC approval just to buy your little 10-year-old that little mini, helicopter that, flies, that can fly over the house or whatever. That's kind of.
Well, here's a little
wonky in them rulings there.
Here's a little tidbit that's kind of interesting of some news that I saw a little while ago. This was 2-3 weeks ago. I don't remember what the product was called, but it was a wristband that you could undo, and then it would go into like helicopter mode. It would fly up, take a selfie of you, and then fly back to you.
Yeah, I saw that too. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, the question I'd have with this is the FAA going after basically remote control quadcopters, or was it more the drone aspect of it, were these like self-directed devices? Were they going after because it flies, or were they going after because there wasn't a person in direct control of it?
I gotta dig into the story a little bit more. Let's see. Estes built the drones that provide infrared thermal imaging. They can also detect human movement inside a home or car. And what he's doing is legal. You can do a lot of good things with it, or you can do bad things with it, Estes acknowledged. Estes wrote letters to the Federal Aviation Administration about his drone capabilities. Right now, the FAA requires personal use of drones to fly under 400 feet, but Estes says he can fly thousands of feet higher. Some of his neighbors worry that the technology is placed in the wrong hands. So it's the capability, it's the actual flight capabilities of his devices that are the issue. And really, for something to be, his business model, he envisions, renting this service out to, first responders, law enforcement, whatever, like a search rescue type scenario. And for something like for that capability to be useful, he'd have to get up over 400 feet, just for just for the use of it.
I think it would stand to reason, though, if he's got a control center and they're basically renting them out, obviously he's got to have people manning these things.
Right.
Because let's face it, sure, you can send drones up. Let's say they're going up in the mountains. Somebody got lost skiing up in the mountains and that sort of thing, and they're looking for heat signatures and that sort of thing. It just stands to reason that a drone isn't going to really be able to do as much as a pair of actual human eyes that are, controlling it. So
Yeah,
I would,
you gotta have somebody watching that screen and watching the output from those sensors, so that you can actually, because there's still not a computer algorithm out there that's smart enough to, to detect. It takes a trained eye to tell the infrared signature of, say, a Sasquatch from a human being.
Gotcha. Okay, and speaking of computer algorithms that you just mentioned, Ed says there is something new that can potentially harm your Linux system. What is that?
Yeah, there's a hacker group that has created a new spyware slash malware. They're calling it a crimeware, and it seems to target Cisco Microsystems devices. The people at Kaspersky reverse engineered the code to find out that it was actually malware. And so it looks to be, from the information that I have here, that this is due to built-in backdoors and zero-day vulnerabilities that were not fixed by the creators of the Cisco systems. This affects both Microsoft Windows and Mac systems, and it's kind of a bad one out there. So it doesn't mention exactly how you get it here, but it states a lot in plugins and stuff like that. So I would think that would be potentially browser plugins and stuff that could operate some malware on your device. So be careful with your plugins, what you install. Third-party installations, you should also always be careful about where that stuff is coming from.
Okay, and something that was related on that that somebody posted on our forum was that there's a scare about ransomware going on as well. And so with anything on a Linux system, your best bet, folks, and this is the best advice I can give, is that backup, 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 and backup. Always keep backups of everything. This is something, like in Windows, you had a regular maintenance routine. You'd regularly defragment your hard drive. You'd regularly, scan for viruses and that sort of thing. Whereas in a Linux system, we basically back up everything, and we keep regular backups in a safe place. So that in case something goes wrong, you have to reload your Linux system. You have backups of everything in your home directory so that you can restore those things and get back to work quickly, efficiently, and quite easily. Biff, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the first rule I give anybody with any kind of computer when they start tearing into, whether it be on a Windows or Linux system, is to keep everything else backed up, even if it's just a little, even if it's just one of these little guys. Drag and drop your home folder onto one of these and have it there. And because if you're running on the Windows side of things, the only way to fix anything, if anything goes haywire, is to reinstall, and then you better have everything backed up. And and then with Linux, we have a lot of really slick tools that make it. I mean, you can rsync, set up a, we have a lot of slick tools to make it real easy.
What you got, Brian?
I agree with everything Biff just said, but also want to point out that, I think we get a false sense of security as Linux users because, typically malware doesn't affect Linux systems. However, it does exist, and, it can get there, and immediately the first thing that I think of, and one of these days it's going to happen. You've got your official repository. Every distribution has their official repository, their official software repositories, And just about every Linux distribution also has a way that you can add third-party repositories and pull software from third-party repositories. Manjaro users have the AUR. Ubuntu, Debian, Linux Mint users have PPAs. To me, if I really wanted to get something, malware, be it a virus, be it some kind of spyware, some kind of something, I think probably the easiest way to do it would be to hide it as a Trojan horse, something real cool, slick, and neat to use that people are going to want. Build a PPA and package it up in a PPA. People could add it to their system. You gotta have root access to add a PPA, and then you gotta have root access to install software from a PPA. That thing gets on there because honestly, I mean, I know because of the open source philosophy, yeah, you can open things up, you can look at the code, they're supposed to provide the source, but how many people actually really look at source? And how many Linux users even have the knowledge to really inspect source code to see if something wonky or bad is going on in there? I'll admit I don't.
Well, it stands to reason, though. If you're going to have a PPA, it has to be up on Launchpad. Somebody's looking at the code, I'd imagine. But you made a good point there. Only add to your sources listing, regardless whatever distribution you're using. Make sure that exactly. Make sure that you're putting in sources from a reputable source and not some fly by night.
Yep.
Like in the Arch system, they have keys that they have Pac-Man keys so that they can verify the packages that are being downloaded and installed on your system to protect you.
Right.
Edge. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I agree. There needs to be something that has to happen because every one of these systems seems to have some way to add third-party stuff, and while that is not necessarily a bad thing, it has to be done correctly, and I don't think it always is. That doesn't mean we've had the aftermath of that yet, but the designs definitely need to be improved upon.
And as Linux does gain in popularity and we get more people using it, I'm sure we're going to be seeing some more potential malware.
It's going to happen. It's a matter of time. It's going to happen.
Well, we're already seeing that happening on Android. There's malware out there. So, and Android is using the Linux kernel. So, it's not impossible.
But
for that, go ahead.
We all know that does not necessarily have to do with the Linux kernel itself. That has to do with the design of the Android operating system, in that they no longer natively use the correct permission scheme that keeps us safe. We no longer have on an Android, for most devices, root activities saying, hey, we need some sort of user action to be able to do this action. It kind of is a mix between how Windows and Linux does things, in that the user pretty much is the administrator in all intents and purposes. Yes, there is another administrator account, but they've broken the difference between the administrator and the user on Android, and that's why we're getting malware there.
That's right. For Linux defense, though, the only way the best way to get a virus with both Android and Linux is still to manually install it. We look at some of the stories coming out of the Android market. The exploits have been more social engineering, where they just get someone to install it from the market.
Well, that's the weakness in it. That is the number one vulnerability in any security scheme, and it's something that it's impossible to engineer away, and that's the user. Yep. You cannot engineer the user out of a security scheme, and that's always your number one vulnerability, is the user.
Yeah, there's a lot more smooth talkers out there than Uber hackers.
Yeah. The thing is, any educated user isn't going to just pop their password into an unsolicited window. And that's something I've always told newbies that are transitioning, when I'm transitioning them over to Linux. If you get a pop-up window that you did not, you pressed a button and a pop-up window asked for your password, obviously you want to launch this program, but if a window just pops up out of the blue that you didn't expect asking for your password, odds are you don't want to give it your password, because
Yeah.
because but that's not to stop any malware from harming your home, your home directories, and that's why I say always keeping a backup of everything in home is very important. Okay, let's move on to our last topic of the night, and this was probably one of the hottest topics that we have had in recent discussion. And believe it or not, this was in our off-topic section at cupoflinux.com. And JV had posted an article stating Microsoft is to include a package manager in Windows 10. And it seems like, guys, with every new release of Windows, they're adding some other things to their operating system that we have been enjoying for years in Linux, and now they're bringing in a package manager. Now, this is something that's going to be done from their quote PowerShell, which is probably only available in their professional versions, I believe. I don't think the
so.
PowerShell. Yeah, I don't think the PowerShell.
Professional and server versions, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. PowerShell comes with the home standard or the home premium. I think this is more along the lines of professional and that sort of thing. And I don't know that it would give you the full benefits of a package manager that Linux has, where you have a number, but you can add repositories and that sort of thing. And one of the repositories that it's built off of is something called Chocolatey. Now, this could be a nice boon for Microsoft, because if you are using a this would allow you to install multiple applications at one time. You all know the tedium of having to open up every single exe file, agree to the license agreement, press next, no, I don't want your title bar on my browser, next, and all this other stuff, okay? So now, having a package manager, well, I don't know. See, let me share some comments that were stated on the forum about this. Some people. Okay, well, Brian, you said this. The idea of package management is foreign to most Windows users. Microsoft will have to really educate their users who still want or expect a double-click on an install exe file to install software. It's probably too much to ask Microsoft to come up with something as feature-rich as Synaptic. Finish that for us.
Well, it's funny because it's true. Yeah. Now this isn't rant shade worthy. But
oh, okay.
I mean, honestly, okay, so it's only going to be available via the command line and only in the PowerShell. So they're not even going to attempt to come up with something as feature-rich as Synaptic. They're going to try to ape something that is broken and baroque and silly as as Aptitude. God, I hate that one. But
a lot of people are going to be throwing stones at you for that comment tonight, because I'm sure there are a number of people out there that are still using Aptitude. So, but
I'm sure there are. That's why somebody, thank God, invented Synaptic, so that you could do all the stuff. I know Aptitude is feature rich and everything, but it's another one of those things like that stupid SUSE partition manager that just has so many freaking options that it just confuses the crap out of you. Synaptic, the graphical package manager is at least sane, and you can figure that out. Aptitude in the command line, no, I won't touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
Now,
I like myself.
Something that comes to mind before we pass the microphone over is, I wonder if they're going to really be able to pull the security part of this off, because we know in Linux, when open up a shell and we want to install something, we have to put in our password and that sort of thing. And we all know you don't have to do that in Windows. So I had stated something to the effect of this on my forum post, that this could potentially be a tool for spammers and malware writers to use. Because so if they're going to pull this off effectively, they're going to have to do some level of security on that. What do you think, Biff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like we were saying before, that's the easiest way to get in, to get something approved. Once it's approved once, then you're not aware of a lot of the updates and things going on in the background through an automated system. You never know what they're slipping in later on. But I was wondering, actually, what came to mind is the rumors are still standing that Windows 10 is going to be free, or at least a free upgrade. And I'm wondering how much of this package manager is just kind of a reskinned way of selling back features, that selling back certain features after they give you a free operating system, have it very limited, and then really you have to buy in to have access to these packages.
In response to that, I'm picturing Windows 7 Starter, where you couldn't even change the darn wallpaper. The wallpaper! You couldn't even change that!
You're going to change it. You're going to put your credit card information in. They're going to charge you every time you want to change something.
And Brian's got the got the glasses on and that sort of thing. But it stands to reason. Okay, sure, yes, Windows has the user access control and that sort of thing, and it stands to reason that if you can click that button, can't the malware do it transparently without you knowing it and putting whatever garbage into your Windows system? I'm sure it's possible.
It really would allow for an injection of not just malware anymore, but it would become so simple to get any piece of software, any Trojan, any virus that you wanted on that machine installed. It creates that methodology of getting it on there, which was you had to social hack your way to get it on there before. Now it seems like they're giving you a way where you don't even have to.
We've seen how diligent they've been with the Windows Store, the quality software in there. I mean, I did a search recently on a Windows 8 machine in the Windows App Store, whatever they call it. I was getting VLC to see if they had VLC that worked better from a full screen interface for a Windows 8 machine for someone else, and I got about 50 $1.99, $2 apps offering to show me how to download and install regular VLC. Because they had a deal where they were paying, I think it was developers $100 or $200 for any app that they would submit to the store, and they just got absolutely flooded with utter dreck. So yeah, if they keep that pattern of behavior up, it will be a mess.
All right, now Spatry's automotive consultant, Teddy, on the forum, he comes up with these weird taglines but moderators get to do that. His comment to this was, "This is very stupid. Microsoft already has the Windows Store for getting and automatically updating Metro apps. Why not just add desktop apps to download and update from? Then it will act very similarly to Ubuntu Software Center. Besides the obvious question, now we have clear evidence that Microsoft is stealing our innovative features from Linux and BSD."
They've always done that. I mean, I remember at the time. I remember when they were when Microsoft was previewing Vista and the Arrow interface. And the first time I took a look at that, I said, looks like Microsoft is taking a page out of KDE4's book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, really, I mean, that's, it was very, Arrow is looks and acts and runs and behaves very similar to KDE4 and Plasma.
Yeah,
but okay, so I looked at Matthew Moore's rant on the Windows 10 preview, Okay, and he was showing off the multiple desktops, which of course we've had that for a long time too, but they didn't even implement it properly. It's not like you can just switch from one desktop to another. Basically, it's just a means for hiding your applications in another space and then retrieving them back again. It's not really multiple desktops, though. It's like they're taking some of the ideas that we've been enjoying for years, but they're not even implementing them properly. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think we should be waiting just on the lawsuit where they turn around and sue us for using something or having something that's better. Really take a page out of Apple's book.
Well,
that's more Apple shtick right there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's what we have, the Linux Foundation for. That's why we have the GPL licenses and that sort of thing. So if Microsoft were to come in and
Battery froze up.
Yeah. Yeah. If Microsoft were to come in and do that, there's what's known as prior art PIF, and so a simple screenshot with a date there is enough for us to be able to combat that easily.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying it'd be particularly successful, but a lot of Apple's lawsuits I don't think were ever intended to be successful. They were meant to be publicity stunt. They were meant to do a certain kind of positioning in the public, in the public view, somehow claiming that they had something. Because I mean that was kind of the joke. Another big YouTuber did a while back, where they were showing, like at one point, I think they were suing about the shape of computers, and they went and showed how many computers from the 60s and 70s had the same kind of wedge shapes and rectangular shapes that Apple was suing about. So yeah, it's more just the publicity stuff they do than anything I'm actually worried about.
Yeah, I think though with the licensing scheme of things and stuff like that, if Microsoft were to patent, something they quote unquote created that we've had all along, and they were to try and take the Linux Foundation to court, their patent would obviously get thrown out and invalidated in the first place. So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, because there have been the stories going on that Microsoft says that Linux violates all these patents and everything. Yet Linus Torvalds has documents and proof that they've had this idea long before they patented the thing. And then so if they were to take it to court, their patents would be invalidated, and then they can't do nothing with it.
Yeah.
So they don't attack the little Linux guys. They're attacking the other companies like Apple and Android and all these other people, saying, "Oh, you got to pay up, or else we're gonna sue you," and all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, I think the patent system is flawed. They need to throw everything out and restart it over, brand new. No patents on food, no patents on soft. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Because
Yeah, once they were able to patent living things, that really opened the floodgate for just insane patenting. But yeah, I think some of the stuff coming up in more the nuclear science arena is going to
yeah, so I could just patent the pinky, and so anybody that's got a pinky is now going to pay me $20.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we got, folks. We've been at this for 50 minutes. Wow, this has been a long show. Great discussion, though. Hey, we had a blast. I hope you guys had a blast too, listening in on us. And if you have any comments on today's discussion, please be sure to post your comments at cupoflinux.com. There will be a link in the description once this finishes processing and all that other stuff that YouTube has to do with the video. And then, of course, I got to put my graphics and all that other stuff on it. So that's all we.
That is an awesome face that he freezed on.
Yeah, I know. That's
I was-
great, isn't it?
I wasn't sure if it was frozen for everybody or just for me. So.
Oh, well, it happens sometimes. And then be sure to check out Brian's channel, and also be sure to check out Ed's page as well. There's a link to him on the front page of my site. Just get on the edge. There's a banner at the bottom of the page. Check out his website. He's got all kinds of stuff going on, getting everything is worth your time. Peace out, y'all.